The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Oshkosh Media, the City of Oshkosh, or your video service provider.
Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host Cheryl Hentz. Very pleased to be joined again. This is the second visit here. Hope to have had her on much sooner than this, but better late than never. Our school superintendent here in the Oshkosh Area School District, Dr. Vickie Cartwright, is here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here with you.
Yes, it's been a little over a year, I think, since you were on, or maybe right about a year.
A little over.
Yeah, but I'd wanted to get you on, and we talked about that, but schedules just, they didn't work out.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're here now, though. So overall, you're settled into the district. You've completed your first full year as superintendent, and how was it?
You know, I'm so glad that I'm here. I really am. And being a part of this community is very important. And the community has accepted me and it's welcomed me as one of their own. So it's really been a wonderful, wonderful year.
Sure. And you're all settled in your house?
I'm all settled. My husband's up here with me now, too.
Oh, is he?
Yes,
All right.
he is.
Well, that's good.
So that we're here.
Yeah. So did he, because I know he's still in Florida at the time that you came here.
Right.
When did he finally when was he able to join you?
So he was able to come up here in July.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
So this is like honeymoon stage again, right?
It definitely feels like it, yes.
Well, that's great. That's great. Any hurdles that you encountered in the first year?
Well, any year you're going to have some challenges that come your way, and what matters most is exactly how do you handle that, and what do you learn from those things in order to be proactive and continue to be on that cutting edge and being innovative as a district. So there were a few, of course, having, canceling school for 5 days, which was completely unheard of here in Oshkosh. But I'm going to tell you, we were actually one of the lighters as far as school districts are concerned, as far as number of days. Yeah.
Did you guys have to go into any snow days in June or no?
No, we basically what we did is we went back and worked with the board on we had a couple special board meetings and reconfigured some of the calendar out. So for example, like President's Day, we consumed that as a school day. And then we extended the high school day as well and added on some additional minutes so that way we could absorb the remainder of time.
Yeah.
We were able to go ahead and continue to close school as we had announced originally on that Friday.
Yeah.
Because originally a snow day was built into the calendar, but it was the following Monday. We heard loud and clear from our community, please don't have them come back to school after a Friday on a Monday.
Yeah.
So we've adjusted that out. This calendar that we're currently in, we have built into it already a little over six days, I believe, into it. And again, we're actually closing out the school year on a Wednesday, the first week in June.
Wow.
So that way, if we have to, we still have that. And our school district, our community hasn't had that early of a release in a very long time.
Yeah. So what do you think of all the snow? Being from Florida, this has got to be like culture shock for you, right?
It wasn't too bad, to be honest with you. You learn about it, you read about it, and you listen to others. Take their advice, you know.
For sure.
And really, it wasn't as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. I'll tell you, I'm happy my husband's here now, not having to get out there and shovel.
Yeah, there you go.
Or having someone else out there with me
Yep,
shoveling.
yep.
I think it's going to be a welcomed addition.
Even just to snow blow, if you've got a snow blower.
I have a snow
There you
blower.
go. There you go.
I got that last year.
When we're done taping, I'll tell you a story about a snow blower. I can't really tell it on camera because it has a lot of expletives in it.
Okay.
But I'll tell you when we're done.
But at least I'm not having to go through the hurricanes right now.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So, well, very good. So Smith School, let's talk about that because there's a lot there to really talk about. It was officially closed or formally closed this past summer, and I think the public felt that there was some suddenness in closing because it did seem to happen very quickly.
Sure.
What caused the suddenness? Because I heard about it closing, or that there was a community meeting, and the next thing I knew, I heard it was closing.
Right.
And so that's some fast stuff. What happened there?
It was, so what had happened is a report had come back to the executive team, myself, that the roof was beyond repair. In other words, it was one of those things to where we couldn't just patch it. We couldn't, put anything else onto it at this point in time. They literally were going to have to lift that roof off. Given the age of the building, knowing that there was original parts to that roof,
Sure.
Whenever you're going to lift that roof off, we also we didn't know what we were going to find underneath it too, and what additional costs that might be associated with that. Just the roof alone was an estimated $400,000 in order to do that. Plus, we already had over $3 million in deferred maintenance that was related to the facility. So what ended up happening, it was $3.3 million in capital improvements that were needed for that facility.
So you're talking almost $4 million.
Right. Right.
A couple $100,000 shy of $4 million, and that's a lot.
Right.
And you would have to have gone to the community for a referendum. And, we've had a number of referendums in recent years, all before you came, but nonetheless, I can remember 3 different referendums, or referenda. Not sure which one is correct, but I can remember those. And I don't know, this community supports quality education and that kind of thing, but I don't know. I think another referendum might have been a tough sell. So,
it was not only the roof, but we also had declining enrollment that was occurring within that school.
Okay.
So there was fewer and fewer and fewer students that were attending the school. And so when you looked at the totality of the situation, not only that, but we could not find, we had a variety of contractors go, and no one would certify that that roof would make it another winter.
Wow.
And so it wasn't something to where, okay, we can plan for it, we'll invest the $400,000, we'll go ahead and replace the roof a year out from now, because at that point in time, there's no way you're going to be able to find a contractor to do it that quickly over the summer, without having to move, moving children out there and those kind of things. And so it was really important. Safety really became the crux of the conversation. Okay. We really did not want to put our children and our staff's potential lives at risk.
Sure.
And so a lot of that was that suddenness. And in addition to that, but we also wanted to try to make a decision prior to school being out. The board really was committed to that because they wanted to give the community ample time to, make arrangements to go through that process of, okay, we know it's going to close, and all right, no, I'm on vacation, all right, what did they decide? And people don't, that communication, people don't hear about it.
Right.
So they were really conscientiously trying to be aware of that and make sure that we were communicating as thoroughly and effectively as possible with our community, and take that concern into play as well.
Sure. I've got more questions about Smith and where the students went and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But you touch on communication, and that is so important. And, being very transparent in communication. And I think one of the best things that the district did was to recreate or reinstate the communications position, because you guys used to have it years ago,
Okay.
and then they did away with it. And then there were a lot of things that weren't being communicated to the public and the parents. Well, they're the public also, but especially communicating with the parents. So then they reinstated or recreated this position. They said, we really need someone. And I think that it's Katie, right? Isn't her name
Katie
Katie?
Neiman.
Yep.
Yes.
I think she's doing a fantastic job. I really do. I mean, there are so many press releases that come out from the district, positive things that are going on. But, you guys are transparent with the other stuff too, and I
Yes.
think that's so important. So, thank you for that. So now that I've said the nice things, let's talk a little about some of the other stuff.
Sure.
Because one of the things that we saw was a lot of unused materials being thrown out, stuff that had been purchased, never used, in many cases never even opened, and thrown in the dumpster. There were medical records from probably decades ago that had been thrown in the dumpster instead of being shredded as they should have been. And all of this stuff, all of a sudden, is laid out on a woman's lawn. She'd gone into the dumpster, I guess, and found all this stuff. I know that you guys were doing an investigation to find out what really happened there. So kind of a two-part question, Vickie. Is it, are the things that they found that had not been used, or in some cases unopened, did they find a home in another school so that they're being used? And what happened with the medical records that they were tossed out and not shredded?
So we were able to obtain all of the records that were mistakenly placed into the dumpster. It was not an intentional act.
Sure.
By any stretch of the imagination. And you are correct, it was from many years ago. And the medical records, a lot of times I think there was some clarification on that. It was mostly the emergency cards, and on the emergency cards.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Contact information.
Right.
Of, in the event of an emergency, please call.
Correct.
So-and-so.
Correct. Or any known issues.
Sure.
Those kind of things.
Yeah.
So that is more, and we've gone back. We really did investigate it. We take it very seriously, and we were very candid that we were going to take it seriously, and we have taken it very seriously. We were able to go back and isolate it, and we found that it all occurred on one day. It was a mistake. It was not intentional. No one would intentionally throw away student records or new items. For the most part, a majority, all the items within Smith School, anything that was reusable, we put that all into the gymnasium. Then we had schools, principals from schools all across the district come and say, okay, I can use this, or I can use this.
It was like a big rummage sale.
Well,
without having to pay for it.
So,
right?
for example, the rock wall that was there, well, that's now residing over at Lakeside.
Okay.
So we did reuse a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Things that we did have to throw out, we also tore apart. So, for example, the metals, we would tear off the metals from the plastics, and we recycled it. So.
Okay.
We were very purposeful in how we tried to do that.
Sure.
Unfortunately, there was a mistake that was made,
Yeah.
and we can't hide from that.
Right.
It is what it is on that, and we regret that happened, because it was not intentional, and we hate that ever occurred, because it really kind of put a negative on something that actually was going very positive.
Yeah, and so in some people's minds in the community, already there was a little bit of a black eye, because they didn't feel that the Smith closing really needed to happen.
Right.
So there was already that black eye on the district in their mind, and then this other stuff happened. So then you had two black eyes on the district, with the way some people were feeling about this or approaching it.
Right.
So I understand mistakes happen. Was this person disciplined in some way, or, and I know you can't get into
right.
real specifics, but
Right.
you handled it with the individual.
I will very clearly what I can say. I can't say what occurred, only because that is a personnel matter,
Sure.
And there are laws about that. So
Yep.
I cannot go into
That's
that.
why I didn't push.
But I can allow, again, as I mentioned before, we took it very seriously.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So some of the students, let's talk about where the students went.
Sure.
Because some of them, not a whole lot, but there were a few who sort of went back to their home district.
Correct.
Because they had chosen to go to Smith, and
Or we assigned them to Smith because
Yeah.
their home school at that point in time was full.
right. So the majority of students from Smith went over to Jefferson,
Right.
and then there was this handful maybe of students who were referred back to their own district.
So there were a handful of students that if Smith was not their attendance zone school, that handful of students went back to their attendance zone. However, parents were also given the option to, again, apply for open enrollment to go into any other school
Okay.
that had capacity throughout the district.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, okay, your attendance zone is Reed Elementary School. Well, you have to go back, and you don't have any choice. You have to go back to Reed
Yeah,
Elementary.
yeah.
We didn't do that.
Right.
In fact, we made sure that the process was completely open. We reached out to those individuals and said, you can apply for open enrollment if you wanted to go to a different school. So let's say you wanted to go to Shapiro,
Yeah.
then you could go to Shapiro on that. Again, a lot of it being based on capacity.
Sure,
Because
sure.
if the school's already at capacity, then, for example, like Lakeside is a prime example. That school typically runs at capacity.
Okay.
So no, you wouldn't necessarily be able to go there if they were
Right,
already full
right.
within that grade level.
Yeah.
But all 100% of the students who lived within the attendance zone of Smith School relocated over to Jefferson Elementary School.
Okay. And that's a good thing, because Jefferson is, I don't want to say it's a new school, but it's not the old Jefferson.
Thank you for that
once
clarification.
existed. I can't remember the precise year.
2000.
Was it 2000? Okay. So it's a school that's 19 years old,
Right.
and still a very nice looking school and in very good shape.
In excellent shape. It has so many of the amenities that we're looking for in our facilities at this point in time that we're really trying to get towards. Because it has, so for example, those really hot days. This week is the exception right now, but
Yeah.
let's see. I think it was what was it, Monday, that we were a little warm.
It's strange. I had the air conditioning turned off.
Okay.
Then that really hot day, I think you're right, it was Monday, turned it back on. And then the next day, thought about, geez, do I turn the heat on? It's weird.
So Jefferson has the AC inside, so it's able
Okay.
to accommodate that. And if you'll remember how thick the air was on
Yes.
Monday as well,
Yep.
could you now? 2/3 of our facilities don't have AC.
Yeah.
Those students were sitting in those facilities, pretty miserable.
Yeah.
On that day, which
Do
of
you
course.
guys have fans that you can put in the rooms? I know that would be a lot of fans, but
Yes. So some of our and the purposes there, some of our teachers will use, of course, we use fans.
Sure,
If
yeah.
you're on the upper floor, we'll open a window.
Yeah.
Those kind of things in order to get some air circulating.
Sure.
And so it's not as muggy.
yeah.
But it makes learning extremely difficult.
Well, it does. Even as adults, if it's hard to breathe and you're sweating, you're focusing on that. You're not paying any attention to anything anybody is saying, really.
And
Or
we-
if you are paying attention, you're not grasping everything that they're saying.
Right.
And the full import of what they're trying to convey.
So it's not only that, but also the classroom designs, the design of the actual room itself, and how teachers can utilize the space within those rooms
Right.
in order to do flexible seating.
Sure.
They're also able to, they have carpet time, so they have a variety of different ways that that really adds to that educational experience for children. That's really important in preparing them for that future that right now we really don't know what it's going to look like, especially with artificial intelligence coming as quick and fast at us right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So we know some of those things are really important, like teaming. Being able to work in small groups, being able to think outside the box, those critical thinking skills, those type of things.
Yeah.
Work with your hands on projects and putting things together so that you're using every aspect of learning.
Yeah.
In our older facilities, you don't have a lot of those opportunities because the rooms just weren't made for that.
Yeah, yeah. So you put 100 and some students into Jefferson. And the classes, I know when I wrote the article for the Oshkosh Herald, and it was a very in-depth article, and I don't remember the class, the number of students in each class, but there's no overcrowding situations. No. So my question, I guess, then is, was Jefferson originally overbuilt that now it can accommodate these extra students?
So what originally happened is within that area, within that community as a whole, the number of students within that community has been declining over time.
Okay.
So even with us putting all of the Smith students into Jefferson, so now our new Jefferson Elementary School, the capacity of that school is about 300. Currently, there's 278 students.
Okay.
So obviously, we're not. But the beauty of it is we're now using the facility for how it was really designed.
Right.
To where it was designed.
Right.
The sizes of the classrooms are small. We're still meeting those AGR guidelines, which limits how many students to the student to adult ratio. Right.
Sure.
So you still have your small classes that are happening in there, and it really is. Again, a very unique situation for our students because we're blending the two communities together.
Kids are making new friends.
Absolutely.
And keeping the old.
Right.
That's a good thing.
And they would all be going to the same middle school anyway.
Sure.
So it's happening here, and like I said, it's really it's a good situation that we're able to do for our students.
Well, and another good part of this is that no jobs were lost as a result of this change.
No.
So did anyone leave, like through retirement or anything like that?
We always have attrition that occurs throughout the entire district due to retirement. So yes, there were some retirements, or we also had where individuals were like, yeah, I think I want to possibly go somewhere else. So, but it was a very, very. I could put it probably on two fingers. So
that's pretty small of an amount.
Well, it's a small amount. I won't give it the exact amount, but a small amount. In fact, I was over at Oak Lawn yesterday for the Walk to School event, and the media specialist came up to me and she says, "I just want you to know, I was one of the Smith individuals. And this is where I landed, and I am so happy here."
Oh, very nice.
And she did not have to do that by any stretch of the imagination. And I was so thankful that she made it a point to come over and to communicate that.
Yeah. And, of course, Oak Lawn is our newest school in the district.
It is.
You know offhand how old that is?
I
want to say maybe 5 years, 4 years?
It was built in 2013.
Okay, so it's 6 years old already.
It's 6 years old already.
Wow, the time really flies. I didn't realize it was that old already, but still very new. Now, as far as the future of Smith Elementary, the school board just a week or two ago voted to sell it.
Correct.
Do you have any buyers that are interested, or are you how does this work when you sell a school?
Sure. So we actually put it through a closed bid process.
Okay.
And that bid process is going to be closing on October 22nd.
Okay.
And the board did talk about what they would like to hopefully be able to get from that bid process.
Sure.
So they were looking for around $649,000 for the facility. And what they're going to do is through that bid process, they're also going to give preferential treatment to bidders who will either preserve the historical significance of that facility and or the integrity of the outside, that historical architecture that's there. And so that truly is the goal, because we recognize that this particular building is important to the community.
It is.
And
it is.
we've heard the community on that, and we want to make sure that we honor that to the best of our ability.
So nobody's going to come in with a wrecking ball and just tear the building down or raise it in some way. It will be repurposed. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, we're hoping that maybe something like what happened over for the Dale School, where it was converted over into a living space.
And that, that for anyone who's never been in there, I had the benefit of knowing someone who lived in the Dale School apartments, and they are just the neatest thing. They had, I don't want to call it a balcony. I'm spacing out on the word, but you've got your downstairs unit, and then you've got this upstairs level where loft. There's what I'm thinking of. Words escape me, and then all of a sudden they just come to me.
I can understand.
This one came to me pretty fast. So there's his apartment had a loft up there, and it was just so cool. It's kind of an industrial kind of feel in there, and it was neat.
Right, but they were able to keep a lot of the historical nature of that school too.
Yes.
And so that's really what we're hoping that will occur. Obviously the board is not going in and bulldozing the school. That's not. And again, the preference is and the hope is that we find a builder that will, or an investor that will be able to do this.
So what happens then if you're looking for ideally $649,000? What if no one bids anywhere near that? Does it just go to the highest bidder then, and you just take a loss on whatever you didn't get that went to that amount?
Sure.
Or how does that work?
Well, and again, this is basically what they're hoping to obtain from that. They'll open up all the bids. We'll do that publicly, and then they'll probably go into executive session to talk through that, which they can, because this is negotiating at this point in time on what it is that they're going to look at, and then they'll go back out into open session either that night or the next board meeting. But go out into open session and announce who they're going to who they're going to make the awardment to. So that way it's kept very public. People know what's happening.
Transparent.
Exactly. And again, through this whole process, that's really what we're trying to do. And we've been very cognizant to our community related to this, and listening to them as well. Because even though it felt very rushed, we made sure that we had 3 different times that we went out to the community to talk with them and to listen to them as well. We heard some of their concerns. We made sure that we incorporated some of those things as related to that. So, for example, when they were talking about, I'm concerned about this this area for like walking to school.
Right.
So we worked with organizations and have crossing guards in those areas. So we also heard where they were talking about, we want to be able to come and see the school, and be able to tour it. So we did that.
There was and that happened, I think, about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Actually, it was about a week and a half ago.
Okay, all right.
And we did it. So originally we'd had it on Tuesday night. Again, listening to the community going. We really was hoping that we could have a second day, on the weekend or something like that. So sure, absolutely. So we opened it up again on Saturday, late morning, early afternoon. It was 11 to 1, so that people had that opportunity, and just to walk through and exchange stories and talk. We had people that said, "I've never seen the school before. I just was curious what it would look like."
Well, I never have been inside the school either, but I wasn't able to get there, so. That's just the way it is. But who knows? If it's converted into some apartments, maybe I'll know someone who ends up living there.
Right. And there's even the deed to the property. And so, for example, the deed on the property, many years ago had expired. But what it was the playground. And it's not the whole building or anything else. It was the playground.
Huh.
And and we had to research it, because we knew that in years past there had been discussions about closing Smith. And the concern continued to come back related to the deed. And so we researched it, we found the deed, and went in, and then from there it was the playground area.
Yeah.
And basically that if the property were to ever be sold or anything else like that, then the money would have to go back towards a green space somewhere else within the city. So the board spoke about that, and even though we're not obligated to do it, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
So we'll segment off whatever the selling price happens with it. We'll segment a portion of that off. We'll put it to the side, and as we go forward with whatever we're doing in the future, we will utilize that funds in order to go to green space, playground area, those kind of things.
That's a good thing. Now, I'm trying to understand the whole process here. So when you decide, or when the board decides, okay, this is what we want to get for this particular school, did they have it appraised, or how did they come up with $649,000?
So a lot of it, I think, is just having a feel for some of the buildings in the general area, and those kind of things, and trying to come up what they think would be a reasonable price to ask for that facility.
Okay. I guess I would have thought that it would have been appraised so that you actually know what it's worth.
Right. So there are a variety of different ways in which to do, appraisals and those kind of things. So you can look at that, but it gives you a range and a ballpark idea.
Yeah.
But,
okay. So now there was some rumbling in the community that a potential buyer had already expressed interest in it. And the rumbling that I heard was, okay, someone has said they want this piece of property.
Oh,
so
prior to being closed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So that precipitated the closure.
Yeah. And
clearly that's not the case because of everything that you guys have done already and are continuing to do.
Right. Now, once the facility was closed, there were people that reached out and said, if you're going to sell it, keep us in mind, we're interested.
Yeah.
But that was after the facility had officially closed, school was out of session, and those kind of things. But no. This truly was a decision made in the best interest of safety for our children, and as I said before, just with declining enrollment as well, for that community as a whole, combined together, and the costs associated with it.
Yeah. Are there any other potential school closures that are sort of down the road but still on the radar screen, do you think?
I think it's really important for the community to be paying attention right now. So the school board actually, during the summer, put together a facility advisory committee.
Oh, okay.
Or authorized us to put a committee together.
Okay.
And they gave them three tasks. And so I'm just going to read that so I'm absolutely clear.
Wow, you actually have that.
I do.
You didn't even know what my questions were, but you had it. I love it.
Well, we want people, as I said before, and I'm sure as you've seen and are saying, we want to be transparent. We want people to know we're not hiding things that we have. No, that doesn't do our community good. It doesn't do our students any good. It doesn't do our staff any good. We're a part of the community as well.
There are, I think some people just are naturally suspicious of the government, and they don't trust the government, and they see a school board, a school district, school administration, anything that is covered by our tax dollars, they see that as the government.
Right.
And, I get it if you're of an age where you've seen a lot of corruption in federal government in particular, and some in local government, you become a little bit more jaded, I guess. Yeah. So I kind of get it. But I think sometimes you just have to take people as you find them. And as you find them is, I think, generally pretty honest and forthright.
Right.
So again, the fact that you guys are so transparent about things, and I hate using that word over and over again, but I don't know of a better word to use.
Right.
You are not hiding anything from
No.
the public.
No.
And, it's funny, I will say this before you get into reading that,
Sure.
that when I knew that you were going to be on, I put out there on 3 different Facebook pages, look, our school superintendent's going to be on the show. Send me questions. And some people did send me questions, and we'll get to those. But there was not one single question that I got about what's going on at Smith School. And I think that's great. But, there's still that small faction out there that is going to believe what they're going to believe.
Sure.
And I will also say this, that when I was writing the article for the Oshkosh Herald, you guys told me that there had been nobody coming to the district saying, they were upset about this or they didn't like that or whatever the case may be. I drove over to the Smith district and I looked for kids playing in the yards. And when I saw a couple of kids in different yards, I went to the door and I asked the parent or the guardian, whoever the case may be, that was opening the door, if they had concerns about the Smith closure or they were upset about something. I didn't, now granted, I didn't knock on, dozens of doors, but the few that I did knock on, I got no complaints from the people answering the door. So I think that speaks also to the fact that people appreciate how the district is moving forward and, the level of, here's that word again, but the level of transparency with which you guys are operating.
Right.
Both as an administration and as a school board.
Right.
So
I'll circle back on one thing real quick as well, because you asked the question, and I didn't answer it directly because you were saying, didn't you have it appraised or anything else? Like, yeah.
Right.
Well, it's not an appraisal, but when you can do your comparables, so that gives you a range.
Okay.
So,
all right. Gotcha.
okay.
Gotcha.
Just so I'm clear on that.
Right.
So.
Potential schools on the radar screen for closure.
That we don't know just yet.
Okay.
We're getting there. So,
Okay.
There were 3 things that this facility advisory committee were tasked by the school board.
Okay.
To proposed options, renovations, upgrades that support learning environments which are safe, accessible, efficient, and equitable. Purposeful spaces that inspire innovative learning, accommodate evolving technology, and promote collaboration amongst students, staff, parents, and community within 3 to 4 tracks elementary schools and 8 to 10 track middle schools. Now I'll come back and talk about that.
Okay.
And then the suggested recommendations shall maximize use, reuse, and or replacement of existing facilities and shall be cost effective for the taxpayer, providing an enduring end product that's energy efficient and adaptable for decades to come for the future of Oshkosh Area School District students.
Okay.
So they give them some pretty heavy tasks.
They sure
here.
did. They sure did.
So one of the things that happened when we did merge the 2 schools together, Smith and Jefferson, is you get I talked about the space, right, and those kind of things, but there's more. So now that school has a full-time phy-ed teacher, has a full-time music teacher, has a full-time art teacher. So these teachers no longer are having to put windshield time in during the day. As a taxpayer, we're paying for their mileage. We're paying for them to be driving from place to place.
Right.
And now the students have access to these individuals throughout the day. If they choose to do a club, before school or after school, they're available to do that. One of the 3 teachers that I've just mentioned, at the beginning, she was so excited. She goes, I can do these projects now because I'm here full time. I can do this, blah, 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 blah. And she went into it.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it was, look at those opportunities that we're holding back from children when they don't have those full-time people there.
Yeah.
Those are missed opportunities.
Sure.
And so those are some of the things that we're concerned about. So 3 to 4 track, what does that mean for elementary schools? What that means is that there are 3 to 4 first grade, kindergarten classes, first grade classes, second grade classes. So it means that you have larger schools. Okay. And so the Facility Advisory Committee is working on this right now. The average age of our facilities right now is 78 years old.
Wow.
For educational purposes, the average, what you usually do, the lifespan of an educational facility is approximately 50 to 60 years old. So you can see we are well beyond for educational purposes, right? We've gone in. We had originally gone in and we did a facility study a little bit over 2 years ago that looked at every single facility and what it would cost just to take care of the deferred maintenance. This is roofs, sidewalks, walls, accommodations for with the Americans with Disabilities Act, those kind of things. And with just that alone, it didn't even talk about renovating. It didn't talk about restructuring classrooms or any of that. Didn't talk about adding AC or it didn't even touch that. And it was well over $100 million just for that purpose.
Wow.
So this Facility Advisory Committee meets almost every 2 weeks. So they've met 3 times now.
Okay.
This last time that they met, they did talk about putting out some information to the community to find out, survey the community, to try to get some information out from our community.
Sure.
But they're identifying that, we probably do need to start, they're having the conversations of where to start. What's the first school that we need to look at, and those kind of things. So that'll be coming out when the survey comes out.
Okay.
And they've already had those conversations a little bit as to where to start. But just to kind of give you an idea, right now our oldest school would be Reed Elementary. However, Reed has been renovated and has a new part that was added on to it. But it was built in 1880. Merrill Elementary Middle, so Merrill School was built in 1900. When we're looking, South Park Middle School, 1904.
Wow.
Then we can jump a little bit. Now we get into Roosevelt, 1923. And Lakeside, although as you know that one has been renovated, originally was 1939. And then there was a period in the district's history and in our community's history where this community did build a lot of schools in a very compressed amount of time. And it was in the 1950s.
Okay.
But again, that was in the 1950s.
Yes, that's still, that's a long time ago.
Oakwood, 1953, Emmeline Cook, Webster Stanley, 1955. You also have Washington, 1957, Franklin, 1957.
Wow.
And then you get into the 60s, so that's Oshkosh West, 1961. And then Tipler, Perry Tipler Middle at 1967. But you kind of get the idea. And then Shapiro was 1970. And then, then 1972 was the last one with Oshkosh North. Now, the next one that was built was Carl Traeger in 1997.
Wow.
So,
We've got a lot of old schools, don't we?
We do, and this doesn't even take into effect like our rec center, which is also right there at the age of what Merrill is, almost, around there.
Unreal.
So by having larger schools, what happens is there's a few misconceptions that people need to understand. Number one, no, we're not talking about larger classes. Okay. You will get efficiencies automatically. So, for example, the full-time teachers.
Sure.
You're not having to pay for people going over and over and over. There's also some replication in services or duplication in services and those kind of things. So now we're able to really shore up a lot of where we have duplication of services, which is costly, but you also get into making sure we take care of our children and give them educational opportunities that we just financially can't do right now.
Sure. Okay. Gosh, we're down to 15 minutes, and
I'm sorry. I need to probably not talk as much.
It's fine. It's fine. See, again, you're being transparent.
Yes, and the next meeting, by the way, is on October 14th at South Park
Okay.
Middle School, and then October 28th at North High School, and November 11th at West High School. If anyone who wants information, go to the district website. We have our own, we've designated a whole page to this.
Okay.
People can go in there, click, and see copies of the presentations. And starting the last two meetings, we've even recorded because,
Okay.
again, we want people to know.
Okay. And the district's website, I know we have it up on the screen, but for those listening on the radio, it is oshkosh.k12.wi.us. Again, that's oshkosh.k12.wi.us. So I want to get to some of the questions that the public sent in.
Sure.
And there are a number of those. So, given the decrease in enrollment of students seeking education degrees, creating teacher shortages all over Wisconsin, what is the Oshkosh Area School District doing to support and retain teachers in the district, specifically support from principals and administrators regarding the day-to-day struggles, especially with out-of-control student behavior that can become violent? And then they go on to say that word on the street is administrators are more adversaries for teachers than a source of support.
Well, I hate to hear that. I do know that we are doing a lot, actually. One of the things that we were able to do, we worked closely with our administrative staff, and we actually did it in what I call a zero-based budget. In other words, it didn't cost the district anything else in order to do this. But a change from last year to this year is that we have full-time counselors in every elementary school now.
Okay.
Did not have that before.
That's great.
And so...
Because kids need that kind of support.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no matter what is going on in their life or their world,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they need sometimes someone who can be, you know, they're not biased in any way. They
Right.
can be, here again, the word is escaping me, objective. There we go. Oh my God, getting older, it's hell. But yeah, they can be objective, and they can be a source of support,
Right.
and that's what they should be.
Exactly.
know?
So
So
full-time
that's good.
counselors in every school. Last year we increased the number of behavior interventionists, so that way there's additional support for classroom teachers. So
Okay.
these interventionists come in and work with them with some specific students,
Sure.
or also work with them on classroom management if that is what is needed by for a teacher in order to support them.
Sure,
In addition to that, in our three neediest schools that we identified this year, we did. We're doing it as a one-year pilot, but we added a new position called a behavior curriculum interventionist, I believe. And again, it's for that purpose of being able to really work side by side with our teachers, providing them with that additional support, and supporting our children.
Okay.
And so we're doing some innovative things that are
Sure.
happening as well.
Sure.
So that's why I'm a little sad to hear that they feel as though there's not support, because we've actually beefed that up a lot. We've redone the role of our counselors as to what that looks like. We're rolling out
Sure.
a social emotional curriculum this year for the first time across the district. Well, not across the district. It's actually with approximately half of our elementary schools, so that you're embedding social emotional skill curriculum on a daily basis.
Sure.
And the teachers are working with that, but everything's written for them, so
Yeah.
they're not having to go in there and write everything out
Sure,
for them.
sure.
And the best thing is, it's free to the district.
Free is good.
And it's
Free is
research-based.
Always good. And research-based is better.
Yes.
I want to get to one of my questions
Sure.
before I get to the rest of these. Just a week before we're taping this show, the district held a press conference with the Oshkosh Police Department and the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department
Yes.
on, how the district is going to approach threats of violence, whether it's a bomb threat or a mass shooting threat, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
For the people who did not attend that press conference or who haven't heard about it, can you just briefly tell us what your approach is going to be?
Sure,
to things
absolutely.
like this?
So this is not a policy change, just because I know there was a little bit of confusion about that as well. But instead, this is making sure that we educate, because that's what we do, and we let people know what's happening. We're trying to be proactive on this, and ensuring that our families and our community members and our students know what the potential consequence is. If you choose to make a threat to one of our schools or individuals in our schools, we're taking it very seriously, and it will result in discipline all the way up to expulsion.
Okay.
So
Plus, the law enforcement community may want to take additional action.
and law enforcement could take additional action because they could view it as a terroristic threat. You can be arrested for that.
Yeah.
In fact, here just a couple weeks ago, a couple of counties or a couple districts over from us, a student was arrested.
Yes.
For making a threat. But what's happening is it's social media is our concern. Because a lot of times it's very anonymous.
Yes.
People feel that they can write whatever they want to write, and it's not going to come back to me. The problem is that it has tentacles that go way expanding, and things go viral really fast.
They do. Yeah.
And children have a right to be able to go to school feeling safe.
Sure.
And secure.
Yeah.
And so we're just making sure that our students, if you do this, you are putting your own education on the line here.
Right.
Because we have to have safe and secure environments, and our children deserve that.
Sure.
And so we're asking families, please talk with your children about this. Community members or whomever that child is with, please talk with them about this, because that's usually our number one defense, and we know it's the best approach. And this is also something that's occurring on a national level, is making sure that we educate and go forward and make sure people know what the consequences are. Be proactive in your communication rather than reactive, and people say, oh, well, I was just kidding. No, it's not a joke.
Well, there was a girl just the other day that, said, well, I didn't mean it, Well, why write it if you didn't mean it? I don't know.
It's difficult to discern a joke versus not.
It is. Another question from the public. Do you believe detention in school suspension is effective for transgressions like truancy, tardiness, and other nonviolent or harassing type incidents? If they are not effective, what alternatives have been considered? If they are seen as effective, how is it that some students have more than 30 detentions in a school year? And have you considered having students participate in meditation or yoga as an alternative to detentions, or ISS? What is ISS?
In school suspension.
Oh, in school suspension. Okay. So that's a lot of questions within one big question.
So let's talk about that, because actually, again, this goes back to the district really trying to be innovative on some of this stuff. So, for example, over at West High School, I just met with the principal there, Ms. Cole, and we were talking about how is this happening? Because when students are coming to school late and then they get a detention or those kind of things, or they're truant, so they're taking a completely different approach.
Okay.
And they are trying to do things differently than what they've been doing, and so that is something that is currently being worked on.
Okay.
Yeah, she's trying it out this year.
Okay.
Worked with staff and brought staff along with her on that, and so for example, if you can make it to class, every day for 2 weeks, we will drop 5 of those detentions off of your record. So that way it incentivizes rather than uses it as a punitive approach.
Sure.
So it's a different approach. It also goes a long way with some of the work that the district is doing. So we're really working hard right now on educating along the lines of what we call equity work. And we know that the number one thing that makes a difference in a child's life is the teacher. And we know that relationship is very critical. And so to prevent, because that way children want to come to school and want to be with them because they have that interaction. So those are some of the things that we are working on right now.
Okay, very good. We've got about 4.5 minutes
Okay.
left. What are the accountability measures for administrators as it relates, I think that should be as they relate, to teacher retention and school moral and climate?
So with the morale, we actually do a 360 survey every year on our school principals, as well as ourselves, and we review that information. That does oftentimes become a part of their evaluation as well.
Okay.
And looking at that, looking for things that are going really well, as well as areas that are opportunities for growth. And
Okay.
so those are things, and so we meet with each person individually, and we go over their results.
Sure.
And we have a good discussion related to that. So there is accountability tied to that.
Okay.
And then it's follow-up conversations, of course, throughout the year. And getting back to that the morale and those kind of things. That also goes back to some of the work I was just talking about, and within the equity framework as well.
Sure. What is your plan for recruiting and retaining Black teachers since the district is becoming more diverse and kids need to see teachers who look like them?
You know what? Absolutely. I can't echo that enough. I am all about that, for sure. So Miss Pinkston right now, she's actually our executive director for human resources.
Okay.
And Belinda Pinkston, and she is also new to the district last year.
I was going to say, I've never heard that name.
So this past year, we went out, we diversified how we're recruiting, and we're continuing to do that as well. So, for example, going to job fairs, we went out further. We went to Milwaukee, for example, and trying to recruit individuals as well as try to diversify.
Okay.
We're also taking advantage of, she's working with maybe some of our parapros right now, who have an interest in becoming teachers, and coaching and mentoring them a little bit with that as well.
Very good.
We're looking to go to some of our more historical Black colleges,
Okay.
the HBCs, and she's looking to go out and start recruiting there as well.
Okay.
And she has the ability to be able to do that, which is very, very nice. And in addition to that, we've also partnered. So, for example, when we're going out, we all work with the city as well as UWO to see if they want to, because the significant other, right? We're recruiting for two, oftentimes.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to
Okay.
take care of them that way as well. So we're
Okay.
really diversifying that and trying to ensure that we diversify our workforce. It's not where I want us to be, but we will get there.
Okay. 1 minute.
Yep.
Wow. I know that some great things are being done to help students improve their mental wellness. Can Dr. Cartwright give us an update? I'm so grateful for their proactive work in mental health and suicide prevention.
Okay, so we've expanded out our screeners for, previously that was at high school, so now we're expanding that. We're going down into middle school, and we're continuing to go down. That started this year. We also were able to receive additional monies from Governor Evers' budget.
It's catching.
Sorry. And so with that, with services with Catalpa, for example, we're able to expand that out a little bit to a few more schools this year. We'll also have a mental health navigator that's going to help tremendously. So some of our families who can't get in, we'll be able to start making some of those transitions so that they can get in.
Okay, very good. Gosh, we are out of time, and I wanted to ask you the enrollment numbers. Now that we're past, do you just have a general idea?
Sure. So we're slightly down, a little bit between 150 to 180 students thereabouts, but at 9,933.
Okay, very good. 9,933.
That's our adjusted count.
Okay.
And that's
very good.
important to say, adjusted count,
Okay.
because
Super.
that includes ins and outs.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it
Absolutely.
very much. It will not be a whole year before I get you back on the show. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Not a
And thanks to all of you. If you want to help out with the show and be a volunteer, we've got a screen here that should be coming up that tells you how to get in touch with us. Write to me at ionoshkosh@gmail.com. We will provide training. You don't need any experience. It's just a good way to give back to the community and have fun, and you're learning in the process. So that's it. Thanks again to Dr. Cartwright. Thanks to the crew. And as always, thanks to you. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.